Well, again, we're talking about legislative priorities. I'm asking everybody. And I noticed you've got some bills. I didn't see anything that was a refile from last year, but they're all really interesting. So I was wondering, what are your priorities? What are your
Yeah, for sure.
want to get passed?
Oh my gosh. I mean, this year we are working on legislation that has big impact, but I not it doesn't require huge budget request or even, multiple committee stops. Really trying to focus on areas of vulnerable communities where we can make a big difference. And of course, I'm also working in the Ways and Means Committee as a ranking member. We haven't filed bills explicitly in this category, but I am working with the chair of Ways and Means to re-examine sales tax exemptions that are outdated and irrelevant to eliminate them to hopefully ensure that when we are generating revenue, we're generating it from appropriate places that don't burden the taxpayer. And we're also, of course, um, uh, visiting exemptions to ensure that they are fiscally responsible and applicable to more people. So that's an area that I'm also working on right now, which I'm very excited about. But when the bills that we have filed specifically, so we have legislation that are consumer oriented. So our small business construction disruption assistance is really about supporting both small businesses and consumers in the face of major public works projects. We've seen in the Orlando area and surrounding communities across the state where you have these major infrastructure projects which are needed, but unfortunately, in the timeline of their implementation and with delays, small businesses struggle and consumers can't access those small businesses, and some have even closed in the face of these construction projects. That's a really important bill for us that we see bipartisan support for, having conversations with chairs about the fiscal and the need for local governments to have some buy-ins. We're having those conversations right now. I have two bills that focus on our community with disabilities. So one of them is focused on children with disabilities to help prevent elopement in a school setting. This legislation has come to us from the Autism Society of Greater Orlando. It's a very good bill. Basically helps to ensure that any child that is at risk of elopement at a school setting, also known as wandering, that the school has a plan in place to prevent that from happening. And there's also parental notification required if a child does elope. And then our right to repair for motorized wheelchairs, another really good bill that basically would take a take an attempt to break down the monopoly structure around motorized wheelchairs where someone who uses this resource and for those who lean on accessibility through a motorized wheelchair, it's not a luxury, it's an essential. And yet when something breaks, they have to go through the manufacturer, get it repaired, and that can take months at times, especially if you're in a rural area. So we want to break that monopoly, allow for there to be independent repair shops so someone can actually get their motorized wheelchair repaired quickly and cheaply compared to only being able to go to one place where they can control the price and control the timeline. So we're really excited about that bill. In fact, both the student elopement prevention and right to repair bill only have two committee stops, which is very positive for us. It means that leadership sees potential with the legislation. And then, of course, we also have a bill that is consumer oriented that goes after ticket sales. So if you're someone who ever goes to a concert and or a sporting event and you buy tickets and you realize that the final cost is not the cost you thought it was due to fees and the resale market, this bill is something you will like. It goes after that predatory and unaccountable environment and ensures that fees are provided to you at the beginning of the ticketing purchase. And it also goes after these resellers that are very exploitative and jack up the prices of tickets by buying them in bulk and then reselling them later, which impacts the experience and the cost for everyone. So trying to help the quality of life for our constituents, help address some of these everyday safety concerns and accessibility concerns, and of course, support our small businesses and thriving.
I how many of these bills were brought to concepts that were brought to you by constituents?
It's a really great question. The student elopement bill, that is it's 100% from constituents, working with the Autism Society of Greater Orlando. This has been an issue of great concern for years now. We just had a conversation with constituents Monday morning about this bill. So that is from our community and has a lot of great support from different stakeholders. Our small business construction disruption assistance bill. I wrote the bill with Senator Smith, but the idea was blossomed from the struggles of our constituents. And many folks might know the Hammer Lambs closure was somewhat tied to the construction in the Ivanhoe area. But we've heard these concerns from a lot of business owners about delays with construction projects impacting their ability to survive. So we wrote that bill, but the idea, the concept, the need came from constituent concerns and then conversations I had with the Florida Department of Transportation, which then helped us craft legislation to address these concerns. Ticket sales and resales alongside right to repair. These are issues that came to us from different national conversations that we're a part of, and really watching the work of the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, where they were actively going after different monopolies to really recreate competition in the marketplace. Unfortunately, United States and Florida have really experienced a lot of corporate consolidation, which basically means that there's mergers and acquisitions happening that are questionable in their growth of controlling a marketplace, which eliminates options for consumers, leading to increased prices and lower quality. So these ideas were inspired by the work of the FTC and bringing that down to a state level because it's unsure what the federal government will do or not do on these issues. So I think it's important for states to take the lead on it.
Cool. I was looking at also your appropriations.
Oh
And
yeah, we got a lot.
you got a lot, but like, and they're recent too, because I've been trying to track those. We know that um, House Speaker Perez, President Albritton has said that they're looking at belt tightening. I know the revenue impact statements out, revenue forecast hasn't come out yet, but um, do you feel like any of these? How confident are you that any of these projects, particularly the Pulse National Memorial or
Yeah.
some of your floodwater improvements and things like that, will not only get it to through to the budget, but get through Governor DeSantis?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I was appointed to serve on the Human Services Budget Override Subcommittee, and actually, I think it's just a regular committee. So I was appointed to the newly created Human Services Budget Override Committee that is reevaluating vetoes made by Governor DeSantis for the previous fiscal year, the one that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And we have one more meeting tomorrow evening to provide our recommendations for projects to be reconsidered through an override of the veto by the legislature. And I'm proud to say that, out of the 12 suggestions I made for an override, seven were selected for a final recommendation out of a total of eight projects we're going to recommend for reconsideration. That does include three statewide projects and one that's in Orange County. With that said, going into this budget year, I've had great conversations with leadership and more to happen, but the Pulse funding in particular is something I already spoke to the speaker about, and I'm very optimistic for. And here's why. The request that we're making to support the city of Orlando in a official memorial to honor lives lost at Pulse is the dollars that was already allocated towards such a project that the One Pulse Foundation, when they become defunct, they gave back to the state of Florida. So the amount that we're requesting is not new money. It is money that was returned to the state of Florida that I want to come back to Orlando to help support this project. So I'm very optimistic about that funding in particular because, again, it's not new funding. It's funding that the state of Florida had already allocated to us, but had to be returned due to One Pulse's failure in meeting its commitment to the state of Florida. Of course, we have other projects as well, supporting the town of Eatonville in investing in their public safety operations, helping to keep kids away from the criminal justice system through recreational activities like skateboarding. We're also supporting all of our municipalities with their special projects from Belle Isle to Winter Park, doing homelessness prevention work with Samaritan Resource Center, supporting veterans. So we're very hopeful our projects will be considered based on their merits. But of course, as you noted, we're gonna look at what the budget looks like, but we're hopeful that these projects will gain traction.
Yeah, I thought the flooding and nutrient management plan for Lock Haven was particularly interesting, and because I hear it all the time, but I don't hear people ever talking about finding a solution. And that's the fact that nobody wants to swim or, well, no one's to swim in a Florida lake anyway, but nobody wants to go into Lake Lasona. That Lake Lasona
Yeah,
is like a
yeah,
gross. Um,
yeah. We've
uh,
had a lot of sewage spills from the lift station failing over the years too. Yeah,
so that
100%.
was when I saw that on there, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Well,
Uh,
and we secured 1 point some million dollars for the Lock Haven Chain of Lakes 2 years ago. And so part of our effort is to continue on that good work that we led on with Senator Broder previous session. So the water projects are challenging just because of Governor DeSantis vetoing many of them last year. But I definitely think it's still worth trying. And, we're excited to see how these projects do.
okay. Um, I did have one last question, and now I don't remember what it was. Great. Um, yeah. Other than outside of the bills that you are sponsoring, your budget requests, are there any other issues that you hope the legislature picks up and works with this year?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is definitely property insurance reform. And we've co-sponsored legislation to create a universal windstorm coverage option for Floridians. We also, of course, are having conversations about the special assessments on condos and providing more time
Mhm.
and also reevaluating the condos that are required to follow parts of the law. There is a difference between condos that are wood-based compared to concrete-based. There's a difference between condos that are by the coast, those who are not by the coast. So I hope we can get a little bit more specific and ensure that condos that are not at risk of collapse don't have to follow with the same rigid standards as others that are more at risk because it is a cost burden to our constituents, many who are on fixed incomes. So those are two big topics that are important to us alongside housing affordability overall. And then I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge this the impact of Florida's 6-week abortion ban and the fact that 57% of Floridians have said clearly by voting yes on Amendment 4 last year that they do not support a 6-week abortion ban. So we are going to be joining our colleagues in filing a repeal of the abortion ban and really just pushing the conversation forward on how Republicans and Democrats agree that this ban goes too far and its impact on the health and well-being of our Floridians.